My twin spread vicious rumors and got me thrown out by my parents. Then they wanted my help, but I made them expose him and live in the shame they gave me. I am a 28-year-old woman with a twin brother. Growing up, my twin brother and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. For some reason, they genuinely seemed convinced that my brother was destined for greatness, while I was labeled the so-called black sheep simply because I was more interested in playing sports or making new friends than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and bruised my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I had to watch my brother enjoy extravagant parties with his friends on our birthday, while I was treated like an afterthought. He often had sleepovers, but I was never even allowed to bring my friends to our house. To be honest, I loathed every minute of my childhood. The only person in the family who seemed to care about me was my grandmother. When she visited, she always brought my favorite chocolates and occasionally slipped me a few dollars so I could treat myself later. As the years passed, this blatant favoritism toward my twin brother gradually transformed into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents would openly mock my grades and belittle my hobbies. It felt as though no matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. Although I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities, insisting I focus only on studies, just like my brother. It was frustrating, and I felt helpless as a child. In my sophomore year, I got grounded yet again, this time for having Snapchat on my phone. I had done nothing wrong except, like all teenagers my age, download an app to stay connected with my friends. However, according to my parents, this was a huge crime and a breach of their trust, as they had forbidden me from communicating with friends. They went ballistic, threw my belongings around the room, took the door off its hinges, and told me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents abuse me this way, my twin brother, instead of supporting me, made my life worse. The toxic environment created by our parents' unjust actions allowed him to exploit the situation to his advantage. He adopted a pattern of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did so he could get away with everything. If he stole something, he'd effortlessly shift the blame to me, and my parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, readily accepted his lies. He would demean me in front of my friends at school and make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends at school because I was approachable and open to making connections. My twin, however, struggled socially, and as an introvert, he felt awkward. He began to resent that I could talk to people easily. This jealousy reached a boiling point during our 14th birthday party when no one showed up for him. I have no idea why his friends did that, but in stark contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had an overall wonderful day. This infuriated my brother further. To take revenge, he began spreading false rumors at school, portraying me as a spoiled brat. He falsely told everyone that I was physically abusing him at home. Since our parents loved him more, he took things to a disturbing level to fabricate evidence. He would punch himself, purposefully inflicting injuries like a black eye or a bruised shoulder. The next day, he would confidently walk into school, displaying the self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence, and make up stories. Whenever our parents questioned him about the injuries, he would lie, saying they were from innocent activities like playing football with friends. His lies and alleged black eyes started to gain traction, and people began to believe his distorted version of events. It wasn't long before whispers started circulating, and even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who once chatted with me in the hallway suddenly became distant, and invitations to group hangouts became fewer and farther between. It was like a switch had been flipped, and people were hesitant to associate with the supposedly spoiled girl accused of violence. One day, I mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why things had changed between us. She opened up about how my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me, revealing the detailed lies he had told, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked to hear her words. The feeling was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if the ground beneath me had given way. My brother, someone I grew up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. It was a betrayal that cut deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my brother the day after school, but he chose to ignore me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he smirked and told me that I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words because his lies and behavior were starting to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid they would believe my brother over me. The isolation stung, especially because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were tearing down the connections I had built over the years. Teachers, too, began to catch wind of the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true self was overshadowed by the malicious stories spun by my own twin. The lies had grown beyond mere teenage gossip, they were now shaping how people perceived me. The nasty rumor quickly reached my principal's ears, and my worst nightmare came true. The principal called me and my brother into his office, along with our parents, to discuss these alleged rumors. I sat there, heart pounding, as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead, he doubled down on the lies. He told the principal that the rumors were true and painted me as a bully who beat him up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as my brother continued spinning this twisted story about how I was angry at him for getting more love from our parents. It was all a bunch of lies, but he stuck to his story like glue. My mom began to cry, holding on to my brother like he was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort him, telling him it was brave to speak up and that he would make sure nothing would ever happen to him. After that day, I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to swim to the surface, but my brother kept insisting I was this angry, violent person taking out my frustrations on him every day. My mom's tears kept coming as she held on to my brother, giving me accusing looks. It was like fighting against a wall of belief in my brother's made-up story. The principal reprimanded me strongly, saying the school didn't tolerate bullying and that these were grounds for suspension. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't let it slide. I begged him, tears streaming down my face, trying to tell him I didn't do anything to my brother. The principal firmly told me I would be suspended for 10 days so others could see this as an example to never bully anyone. It hit me hard, and I started crying even more, practically begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed by the situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave, I wanted to plead my case and make them understand, but they were having none of it. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a drastic turn. My dad started packing my stuff out of the blue. I was shocked, confused, and had no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, pleading with my brother to tell them the truth, but he stayed cold, unmoved by my emotions. My dad continued packing my things and threw the suitcase into our foyer. I clung to my dad's leg, begging him not to throw me out. It was like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and that he would ask his mother, my grandmother, to pick me up if she wanted to. It felt like the world had crumbled beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered in the foyer, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother showed up. She gathered all my stuff, helped me place it in the car, and ensured I had my seatbelt on before walking to my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad opened the door, she started yelling at him for treating me this way. With stern determination, she warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS, as what he had done to a child like me could potentially land him in jail. My mother, attempting to deflect blame, told her it was my fault. However, my grandmother wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, defending me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve to be treated in such a heartless manner. That was the first time in my life I felt how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't cower to my parents and, unlike them, trusted me. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind the only home I'd ever known. I can't even begin to put into words the indescribable pain I felt during that time. I remember crying on the bed and not eating anything, despite how much my grandmother urged me to. I told her what my brother had done, and she was shocked. She assured me she believed my side of the story, and I was happy to have at least one person who had my back. When the 10 days of suspension lifted, the prospect of returning to school felt like stepping back into a lion's den. As I entered the familiar hallways, the faces of my classmates spoke volumes: judgment, whispers, sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations lingered in the air. Meanwhile, my brother blatantly ignored me and acted like I didn't exist. He had become friends with people who believed his side of the story and saw him as the victim of my attacks. No matter how much I tried to tell my side of the story, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow. In the classroom, cafeteria, and corridors, the eyes that met mine were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner. I kept my head down, attended all my classes, ate lunch alone in the cafeteria, and went straight home. I had no friends, and it felt like everyone didn't want me there. Throughout all of this, my parents never once called to check on me. My grandmother constantly reminded me that this was not my fault and that life would eventually be okay. I graduated high school with good grades and looked forward to college, where I hoped for a better life. It was only when I went to college that I experienced what freedom felt like for the first time. No one was watching over my shoulder, comparing my grades, or trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars from my family and peers, I focused on putting it all behind me and enjoying the college experience as much as I could. During this time, I discovered my knack for content writing. I'd always wanted to be a writer but wasn't sure if it would be sustainable long-term, so I initially ditched the dream. To earn side money, I started writing as a freelancer, signing up on various freelancing sites, which helped me secure jobs from prominent clients. This is how I slowly built a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked for a penny from my parents. When I graduated, instead of getting a corporate job, I realized I could pursue content writing full-time. I was doing well because of multiple clients and the long-term professional relationships I had built, which allowed them to involve me in multiple projects. Having a legitimate freelancing career not only made me financially independent but also allowed me to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped heal me from my past, though it was definitely not easy. I saved up as much as I could and took a chance on myself. Over the years, I have seen so much of the world, yet there is still so much left to see. The only person I considered family throughout all of this was my grandmother, and I absolutely adored her. She was sad when I moved out but understood that I needed to be independent. Despite my hectic schedule, I made it a point to be there for her whenever I could. I visited her on weekends, often sharing meals or sitting on the porch, engrossed in conversations ranging from childhood tales to recent happenings. On weekends, I dedicated entire afternoons to helping her with household chores or accompanying her to the local park for a leisurely walk. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects of my career. I can't mention the brand, but I was extremely lucky to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After the project, I requested the team to leave positive reviews on my website, which they were happy to do. I took screenshots of some reviews to post on my Instagram, knowing that working with this brand was a huge deal. As expected, many content writers reached out to congratulate me on my professional success and even reposted my story to spread the word. This led to messages from strangers needing help with their websites. My relatives noticed this as well, and some reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, my college principal contacted me after seeing my success and invited me to speak at a seminar for students about building a career as a content writer. I was nervous, as I don't do well with public speaking, but I agreed to take the chance. When I stood before eager faces, sharing my experiences and insights, I felt like my life had come full circle. In my speech, I spoke about the struggles I faced and how I worked hard to sustain myself despite the hard days. It was a fulfilling experience to empower others and contribute to the writers' community. Some of my clips went viral in Facebook groups as people resonated with them. It felt good to be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel for a show about the benefits of content writing. They asked me to share my journey and insights with their viewers. I was nervous but excited for the opportunity. During the show, I talked about my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could open doors to incredible opportunities. The chance to reach a broader audience and inspire others in the field was both humbling and exhilarating. When it aired, I shared clips on my Instagram, proud of being invited to a TV show. This is how my relatives and cousins found out how well I was doing. Since my parents never talked about me, they had no idea I was working with popular brands and appearing on TV. Word quickly spread within my family, and I guess the TV interview reached my parents' ears because, a few days later, I was working on another project with my phone on silent. When I checked it, I was shocked to see 6 missed calls from my mom. It had been a long time since she last called. Hesitantly, I called her back, and she picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and she started congratulating me. My dad, probably sitting nearby, jumped into the conversation, inquiring about my life and well-being. I answered without much fault, but it didn't strike me as unusual until they asked how much I was earning. I told them it was none of their business, and my dad replied that we were family, so I shouldn't feel shy about sharing my income. I said I was doing well financially. Then my mom began saying how hard their life was these days, and my brows furrowed in suspicion. Here's how our conversation went: we are retired now. We've been wanting to renovate the house for a while. It's not in the best shape, but we have no savings left. Your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview, we thought maybe you could help us out by paying for the renovations. After all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We can really use your help. Are you joking? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't talked to me for years? I don't know what made you decide to reach out, and while I appreciate the congratulations, I'm not going to help you out in any way. My mom started saying I was being selfish and needed to support them as family. My dad added that, as my parents, they deserve to be looked after, and this was the least I could do. I was so pissed that I wanted to give them a piece of my mind. Then I got an idea. Instead of arguing, I would teach them a lesson for thinking they could mooch off me after mistreating me all those years. I told them I was willing to help, but only if they met my demands. My dad curiously asked what they were. Without hesitation, I laid out my condition. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit, in front of our family and friends, that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that tarnished my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother the same way they humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take accountability for their actions and acknowledge the pain they caused. Hearing my condition, my dad questioned its necessity. My mom said it was unnecessary and that we could have a private discussion without involving others, but I held my ground. This condition was non-negotiable, a prerequisite for any assistance they wanted from me. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his role as my father and emphasizing that it was my duty to help my family in need. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing and help, emphasizing the years they spent raising me. I couldn't help but find irony in their sudden appeal. I reminded them that they had kicked me out and that my grandmother, not them, had raised me. They grew more agitated, but I firmly told them that if they wanted contact or financial assistance, the truth needed to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother needed to face consequences for his actions. Since that conversation, my parents have been incessantly trying to call me, but I'm ignoring them. I'm starting to regret even calling them back that day. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I've received have been overwhelming. It's heartening to know I'm not alone. I'm glad everyone agrees I shouldn't engage with my parents or consider helping them after what they put me through. I gave them such a condition because I knew it was nearly impossible for them to fulfill. I know they love my brother too much, and even if they've realized his lies by now, they'll never put him through what they put me through. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text message after my parents tried contacting me again, and I refused to pick up. This is what he wrote. "Hey, sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you every day without you in my life has been great. I heard mom and dad reached out, and you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They're never going to go through with it, you know that, right? They clearly never loved you and will never do anything to hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time, so stop being selfish and move on from the past. You're unmarried and childless anyway, so why don't you want to help them out by paying for their repairs and renovations around the house? Do the right thing and be a better daughter." Seeing the message felt like a stab to my chest. The audacity to dismiss the struggles I faced and the conditions I set spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. His attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my unmarried and childless status added another layer of insensitivity. His insinuation that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was offensive and highlighted how little he thought of me. Fueled by frustration and a desire for justice, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for too long. I sat down to write an email to my parents and close relatives, sharing the painful details of my childhood and the unfair treatment I endured at home. I described the strict and oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how they treated me compared to my twin brother. The email also delved into the malicious, untrue rumors my brother spread about me in school, which led to severe consequences and affected my reputation. I wrote how my parents kicked me to the curb and how, if not for my grandmother, I might have been homeless. Toward the end, I asked everyone to read a message my brother sent me. I attached a screenshot where he admitted to lying about me, a clear confession I hoped would expose the lies that had persisted for too long. I sent the email an hour ago, and I know all hell will break loose once my parents and brother read it. As you can imagine, my family erupted after receiving the email. My parents received criticism from relatives who were previously unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out, saying they had no idea about all of this and apologizing for not being there for me. My brother and parents sent me a barrage of text messages that started becoming more abusive and violent, so I reached out to a lawyer who sent them a cease and desist notice. He warned them not to contact me further, or they would face dire legal consequences. This must have scared them straight because they stopped contacting me. My grandmother thinks I did the right thing by letting everyone know what happened and supports me 100%. She's the only person who matters to me, so I'm glad she has my back. I'm happy to report that everything in my life is going well for now. Professionally, my content writing business is flourishing. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to roll in, solidifying my position as a respected figure in my field. I'm as close to my grandmother as ever. I took a 1-week break from work recently to spend quality time with her. She's into gardening these days and is teaching me about various flowers and herbs in her garden. The moments I spend with her, whether sharing meals, engaging in heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are my favorite and most cherished memories. My family hasn't contacted me since the lawyer's letter, so I'm happy they're staying away. Personally, I've started going to therapy to work on healing myself.